Welcome to my classroom. In the previous lecture number 5, we have seen the classification of cells. That is, mainly we have seen the prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells. What are the commonalities between the prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells? Both of them have DNA, and both of them have ribosomes. Both of them have cytoplasms, and both of them have plasma membrane. Okay, and if you look at the differences, these prokaryotes are single unicellular organisms, whereas eukaryotes are multicellular organisms, single or multicellular organisms. Prokaryotes lack nucleus, whereas they have nucleus, and prokaryotes lack organelles, whereas eukaryotes have organelles, right? And prokaryotes are the oldest type of cells, and these eukaryotes have formed from that, right? So that's what we have seen in the previous lecture. And if you look at the DNA structure in the prokaryotic cells, they are organized by a single circular chromosomes, whereas in case of eukaryotes, DNA is stored as multiple linear chromosomes. We have seen the examples for microorganisms, particularly for eukaryotes. Examples are yeast, fungi, plant and animal cells, or even human cells. All are coming under eukaryotic cells. Okay, so the more complex the organism, the more complex the product that will be capable of producing. For example, a simple microorganism like prokaryote will be able to produce low molecular weight products, chemical products, whereas if it is a complex one, it will be able to produce more complex high molecular weight chemical compounds. Okay, and in this lecture number 6, we will see the classification of bacteria, and particularly autotrophic and heterotrophic bacteria. So we will see what is yield, mold and algae. We are not going to get in details of that, and we will see some of the complex biomolecules, right? And see, our human body is made up of 60% of water, 17% of protein, 13% of lipids, 1.5% of carbohydrates, and 6% of minerals. So all these complex biomolecules are even present in our human body. Okay, see, this carbon is a unique element in life, and even the 90% of compounds found in the living organisms or living systems invariably constitute carbon. Interestingly, life is composed of lifeless chemicals molecules. A single cell of bacterium E. coli contains about 6,000 different organic compounds. If we consider a human body, our human body consists around 1 lakh different type of molecules, but we are able to characterize only few of them. Okay, so if you look at these complex biomolecules, actually they are building blocks. They are made up of some monomers. Okay, so if any complex biomolecules is made up of some simple monomers or building blocks. For example, if we consider proteins, it is made up of amino acids. So amino acid is the monomer here. Similarly, nucleotides will will form the more complex nucleic acids such as DNA and RNA. Okay, if we consider monosaccharides as the monomer or the building block, they combine together to form polysaccharides. Okay, so if we ask me some examples for these macromolecules, so proteins, lipids, and nucleic acids and polysaccharides form supramolecular assemblies. So, for example, in membranes, in the skin, or in the cells, so we have the membrane. So they are all made up of some supramolecules such as proteins, lipids, nucleic acids, and polysaccharides. So which in turn organizes into organelles, cells, tissues, organs, and finally the whole organism. Okay. So in this lecture, so we are going to discuss about some of the types of bacteria, carbohydrates, lipids, cell nutrition, and growth mediums. Ready? So the bacteria can be classified. So if you look at the classification of bacteria, if based on the nutrient that is required, based on the nutrients needed, so they are classified as autotrophic bacteria and heterotrophic bacteria.
Sir, are you presenting something, sir?
Yeah, is it not there?
We can't see, sir.
Okay. So bacteria, based on the nutrient requirements, they are classified as autotrophic bacteria and heterotrophic bacteria. So heterotrophic bacteria, what they do is, so if you look at heterotrophic bacteria, they use organic compounds. For example, even the carbon sources, they make use of organic compounds and carbon sources for energy. Okay, so based on that heterotrophic bacteria can be further classified into 4 categories. What are they? Before we have studied it earlier also. So heterotrophic bacteria can be classified into 4 categories. One is aerobic, that is which needs free oxygen is required, because oxygen is required for them to multiply. So during this multiply process they make use of oxygen. They are aerobic bacteria, and there is anaerobic bacteria, so which do not depend upon the amount of free oxygen available for its multiplication. Okay, so there is another one called as very adjustive type, which is called as facultative bacteria. So they are more flexible in nature. Okay, that means like prokaryotic cells, these facultative bacteria can adjust to different nutrient available in the environment. And there is one more type of bacteria called as saprophytic bacteria, so which depends upon the dead organic materials. If there are dead organic materials present in the system, so let me say dead organic matter, and mostly this kind of bacteria is present in the earth at the upper surface of the soil. Okay, in the soils you will find this type of bacteria which will depend upon the dead organic matters that is present in the soil. Okay, so that is the 4 categories coming under this heterotrophic bacteria. Next, if you look at the autotrophic bacteria, what they do is, this autotrophic bacteria, this heterotrophic is based on depends upon the organic compounds, right? So this autotrophic bacteria depends upon the inorganic materials, so they will easily oxidize the inorganic materials, and also they make use of the CO2 available in the atmosphere. Okay, so they make use of CO2 as the carbon source. So that's why this type of bacteria are useful in carbon sequestration processes. Okay, so they make use of this carbon dioxide as the carbon source, and they oxidize the inorganic materials for energy. Okay, so by oxidizing the inorganic materials, they get the energy required for their multiplication. Okay, so for example, if you look at these inorganic material, some of the bacteria are like what are that? SOX reducing bacteria are there, NOx reducing bacteria are there, even the iron reducing bacteria are also there. So the problem is such bacteria will cause corrosion also. Okay, so these bacteria are responsible for the corrosion in the sewer system. See, in sewage materials, all the components, if they are getting corroded because of the presence of such bacteria, which will consume this thing, and they will reduce the iron also. Okay, so if it is made up of iron, they tend to reduce this thing. Okay, with respect to shape, we have already seen the bacteria can be classified based upon the shape. What are they? Based on the shape, if it can be spirally. We have seen it can be in the introductory lecture. I have shown you that it can be spiral shaped, or it can be spherical shaped. Okay, or it can be rod like shaped. Okay, so accordingly they have the name. Bacteria will have the name of Spirilla if it is spherical in shape, or we call it as Pocky if it is spherical in shape, or it is called Bacilli if it is rod like in shape. Okay, first we have seen how to write the name of the microorganism. First letter, it should become a genus name. Okay, so that with capital letter you will come, then second name will be having like this if it is based on the shape. Okay, so that's a small introduction about the bacteria. And if you look at yeast, what is yeast? So all this you might have studied in cell biology course also, right? Some of you tell me, what is yeast? Yeast comes under bacteria or fungi? One of you? So if you know, you can at least contribute by speaking. What is yeast? Okay, so it's an important group of fungi. Okay, it comes under this fungi. Yeast is an important group of fungi. Their property, one of the property is that it cannot trap the energy from the sun. Okay, it cannot take energy from the sun. So it has no ability to trap the energy or light from the sun. Okay, and mostly these yeasts are found in the soil. They reside in soil of low humidity. You know what is humidity? Master answer psychometric chart, you might have seen what is humidity. So when the humidity is low, there is a more probability that we find more types of yeast that is residing in it. So typical size is like it is like a rod leg. So if we talk about the length and breadth of this yeast, so usually typically it is of size of 35 to 30 micrometers length and 1 to 5 micrometers width. So that is the typical size of a yeast. And they also reproduce. So they reproduce by sexual method and asexual method, that is called budding method is there. So that is like if it is one yeast organism is there, first what they do, they try to divide into two. They don't directly divide. If they directly divide, it is called fission. Okay, so first what it will do, it will get a shape. It will try to get a shape like this, and the nuclei will divide into two, and then they become two. Okay, so that is called budding method of reproduction. So that is one method. There is another method called fission method. Fission method, you know, like all these thing you might have studied, they get divided into two with independent nuclei. Okay, so this is division of a cell into two different new cells. So that is called fission reproduction. So another method is called as sporulation method. So what is sporulation method? So in sporulation there are two types. One is asexual spores and another one is sexual spores. So the name for that asexual spores are Onidia, whereas sexual spores are called as ascospores, and they are further classified. Okay, we are not getting into that detail, just to have some basic details of this. So this is three methods by which yeast can multiply, because yeast is widely used in baking applications, right? So that's why you should know what is this. Okay, and we have seen that Saccharomyces cerevisiae is one of the yeast, widely well-known yeast. Okay, so that example we should give. Saccharomyces cerevisiae is one of the widely used yeast. Okay, so what are the uses? Why we have to understand this yeast is there are applications are there, right? What are the uses of yeast? They are used mainly in the production of alcoholic beverages and in the production of beer, wine, etc. So all these type of alcohol products, beverages, these yeast are used. Okay, so that's why this yeast is important, because most of these industry are producing these alcohols or beverages or beers in large quantity. So as a biochemical engineer, so we have to take care of that processes. Okay, so other than that, there is anaerobic yeast. They also used to produce not only beverages, they also used to produce industrial purpose alcohol. Say for example, ethanol, methanol is a raw material for something or used as solvent somewhere, right? So glycerol is used as solvent. So such industrial alcohol, glycerol. So for that actually anaerobic yeast are used. Aerobic yeast, anaerobic yeast are there. So these anaerobic yeast are used to produce this industrial alcohol and glycerols. Okay, and then we have seen that since ancient time itself, so these yeast are used in the baking purpose, baking applications. Okay, to make all these bakery products. Okay, so that way this yeast is having application. It's a long term application. These are industrial thing which we have come across with the latest thing. And apart from this, this is an for mainly for animals feed. No, there's waste. These yeast are used as animal feed, because when the animals are not having sufficient protein, so to provide artificially protein to them, so this is a protein supplement to animal feeds. Okay, so that way even when animals see, we take tablets, right? If vitamins are not sufficient, we take vitamin tablets. So like that, when animals have protein deficiency, then in that case this yeast are given to them as this thing. Okay, so apart from yeast, there is one more another type is called, which is called molds. So molds, some textbook will write without you, molds. Okay, so actually we have seen penicillin as case study for story of how, what is the significance of biochemical engineer, even for what is downstream processing, upstream processing. We have seen the production, industrial production of penicillin, right? So this penicillin is a type of microorganism which is the mold. Okay, so that penicillin is an example for this. Okay, whatever is substitute name you can write. So this penicillin comes under the type which is mold. So this is actually a fungi. Penicillin is a higher, penicillin is a mold, and mold is a higher class of fungi. So we will be using the name for to represent all this. We will simply called mold is taken, mold is cultured, mold is inoculated, like that. So that when you say mold, it is like instead of bacteria, yeast, this mold is a different type. Okay, so when they have a vegetative structure, like there may be something like plant, its structure may be looking like that. So in that case, if it is having a vegetative structure, like roots of a plant, vegetative structure is there, in that place they are called as mycelium. Okay, so it has the main point about this penicillin or these molds is they'll have, importantly they have two parts, that is cytoplasm will be present in it, and they'll have hyphae. Okay, so these are some of the important parts in it, and others may not be there. And these molds also produce, they also reproduce by sexual method and asexual means, and they don't have chlorophyll. So we have seen in prokaryotic and eukaryotic what are the components present. If you look at the components, these are rich in cytoplasm and hyphae, but there is no chlorophyll. There is no chlorophyll in these molds. Okay, and they are not motile. Okay, so industrially important molds are there. One is Aspergillus niger. So these two are important examples. Okay, so Aspergillus niger. So this is one of the important thing, which is these both actually, if you take penicillin also, these both are used to make antibiotics. We have seen the example of penicillin. So both are used to make antibiotics, organic acids. Okay, and biological, they both are acting like biocatalysts for biochemical reactions. So that's why these two are important examples of molds. And particularly if you look at this Aspergillus niger, this is mainly used for this oxalic acid production, chemical synthesis. Okay, oxalic acid production. I told you that you might be selecting your project title, BTech project title for this design project. So you can always look at biological routes for your production of several acids or these things. Okay, so that is a small introduction to this. And apart from that, there are algae are there. We will discuss them about in detail. Okay, algae comes under prokaryotes or eukaryotes. Tell me, one of you. Algae is a prokaryote or eukaryote? Okay, algae comes under eukaryotes. Okay, and remember this algae is mainly used in the fermentation products. I have shown you in the previous lecture several industrial products which are produced using this fermentation process. We are going to discuss in detail about this fermentation. Remember, in biotechnology, fermentation technology, enzyme technology are independent courses, but in this course we will just see some brief introduction to each one of them and what are the different type of fermentation. What mainly we are, as a chemical engineer, we are concerned about the design of the equipment, particularly if it is a fed batch or solid state fermenter or semi-solid fermenter, submerged fermenter. Okay, so that we are going to see what type of reactor we are going to do, what is the enzyme reaction kinetics that is taking place, only concern for us as a biochemical engineer. Okay, so apart from algae, we have protozoa and we have viruses. Okay, so all that we have their own details which you can read them. Okay, so another question comes to our mind is virus. We have several virus coming into picture. Whether they coming into these prokaryotes or eukaryotes, can you differentiate between virus? Can we say virus is prokaryote or eukaryote? One of you answer. You can unmute and speak. See, viruses are not made up of any cells. That means it is neither prokaryote nor eukaryote. Okay, so they are not cellular organisms. They are actually packets of genetic materials and proteins without any structures that distinguish prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Actually, virus is a small parasite that cannot reproduce. Okay, if a virus can enter into a living organism or a cell, it can direct the cell machinery to produce more viruses. So most of these viruses will have nucleic acids like either RNA or DNA as their genetic material. So the nucleic acid may be any single or double stranded. The entire infectious virus particle is called as a virion. It consists of a nucleic acid and an outer shell of protein. So the simplest viruses can contain only enough RNA and DNA to encode 4 proteins. If maximum complex virus can have encode 100 to 200 proteins. I want to compare the viruses and the bacteria, how they are, what is common between virus and bacteria, and what is the contrast things. See, only thing common about this virus and bacteria, they both are capable of causing diseases in the living cells, and both contains DNA and enzymes. Okay, but if we compare bacteria versus virus, bacteria is bigger in size than the virus, and bacteria has more complex structure, whereas virus has a spiky outer skin called to envelope. Okay, bacteria has lot of DNA blueprints to reproduce, whereas virus is having only a protein coat and which does not have enough DNA blueprints to reproduce. So that's why it has to attack the cellular machinery of the host which it is attacked. Okay, virus which is well known to all of us in this pandemic is this COVID-19 virus. So you can see the structure. So it has spike protein, which is prominent feature of this one, which because of which it got its name, because it is looking like a crown. So in Latin, crown like means corona. Okay, so other one is membrane protein, and we have envelope protein. So So that's what some of the microorganism examples I wanted to discuss. And if you get into these components of the thing, so we should know that all these have they all are made up of some building blocks, right? So what constitutes all these microorganisms, all that we should know. So all this we know already also. So right from school days we have studying what is carbohydrate, what is this thing. So I'll just rewind what we have learned earlier. Okay. So if you look at the carbohydrates, it's one of the most so if you look at the carbohydrates, this is one of the most abundant organic material that is available in the nature. So it's mainly constitutes of carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. You know, water constitutes hydrogen and oxygen, H2O. So these are actually hydrates of carbon. You can simply say hydrates of carbon is the name for carbohydrates, as the name indicates. But there are some carbohydrates which are not hydrates of water. Okay, so that way we should see that there are always exemptions are there. So but in general, the name carbohydrate means hydrates of carbon, but still there are some exceptions like rhamnoxose and deoxyribose. So they are not hydrates of carbon. Okay, and this but rest of them, all of them will have a common empirical formula in the form of, as I said, carbon and water at N. Okay, so CH2ON is the common empirical formula for the most of the carbohydrates, and there are some non-carbohydrate compounds which appear as hydrates of carbon. And so two things are there here. Not every carbohydrate is hydrate of carbon, and there are some material which is still is not a carbohydrate but it still exists as hydrates of carbon. So both we should note down. So there are some non-carbohydrate compounds which may appear as hydrates of carbon. Example, acetic acid, lactic acid. Okay, so industrially acetic acid products, acetic acid is lactic acid are widely used. They have huge demand in the market. Okay, so as a chemical engineer, we have to produce acetic acid, lactic acid in large quantity. And how to define these carbohydrates? So in general, carbohydrates are polyhydroxyaldehydes or ketones or compounds which produce them on hydrolysis. And these carbohydrates that dissolves in water, and if it is tasting sweet, they are called as sugar. So carbohydrates, if it is dissolving in water and tastes sweet, they generally termed as sugar. So that way we are making use of that sugar daily. Okay, so what are the functions of these carbohydrates? They are most abundant dietary source of energy. You know, if you want instant energy, so that's why even the people who are having this diabetes now, they should have some chocolates in the pocket. When the sugar level goes down quickly, we have to, if they take that chocolate or sweet immediately, that it will give some instant energy for them. Okay, generally we say diabetes patient don't take sweet, but there are cases where if it goes down below, we have to provide instant energy. So that time it is a dietary source of energy. So because each gram will have some 4 calories it will give. Okay, so that is the source of energy for most of the organisms, including us. And this is a precursor. Carbohydrates is used as precursor to produce industrially many organic compounds like fatty acids or amino acids kind of thing. And if you look at these carbohydrates, they participate in the structure, if cell membrane and cellular function. So that way when you have cell growth, adhesion and fertilization, all these places they participate in it. Okay, so and they are the structural components of many organisms. As I said, our many cells are microorganisms. They are one of the structural component in it. Okay, for example, the cellulose fiber of plants is made up of carbohydrates. Okay, so some of the insects, we say exoskeleton of some of the insects and the cell wall of the microorganisms are made. Carbohydrate is one of the constituent there. Also, if there is any energy demand of the body is there, so it will supply, our body will supply energy, because the carbohydrate will be We say na carbohydrates. When we say those who are fat, belly has come out, I have lost my size zero, all that. So what is that? Carbohydrate is stored. So when you burn calories, so if energy is there, then only it will start burning. So that carbohydrates will release energy that is required for the body. Okay. So if you want to classify these carbohydrates, so I am not getting into the much detail of that, just touching upon the different names we will be using, because when you focus on enzyme technology, means enzyme and fermentation or separation processes, we will come across these names. So you should able to classify them accordingly, whether it is coming under which type of carbohydrate, like that. Okay, so if there is one sugar molecule is present, they are monosaccharides. If they have two sugar molecule, disaccharide and oligosaccharides come under that more than one. So when it is more than 10, it comes under polysaccharides. So monosaccharides, for examples for monosaccharides are glucose is there, fructose, galactose is there. For disaccharides, sucrose, lactose, maltose are there. So we are consuming this type of saccharides, okay, carbohydrates in our daily diet also. For example, milk we are taking, sugar we are taking, right? Sugar cane we are eating. So they all come under this type of simple mono or disaccharides. And more than, if there are 2 to 10 sugar molecules are present in it, then these they are called oligosaccharides. And more than 10, if they are called polysaccharides. Okay, so starch, glycogen and cellulose. Remember, industrially in fermentation process or for many biochemical applications, we are concerned about the starch, glycogen and cellulose. So these medical people are concerned, means this is a biochemistry, right? So the different people look at with a different angle and purpose, right? So we are concerned about this industrial production of many materials, so that way we will be looking at that. But if it is we are working in food industries, we will also be concerned about these monosaccharides and disaccharides. Otherwise, we are mainly concerned about these polysaccharides, where they are the raw materials or intermediates in the production of acetic acids, kind of thing. Okay, so that's why just a repeat of that previous one. So if you look at the monosaccharide, they will contain one saccharide molecule. Disaccharide means two. More than two, it will come under polysaccharides. Okay, so carbohydrates, accordingly, what is there? If there is one carbon, more carbon is there, more molecular weight is to be there. That is more, it is going to be more complex and more heavier, right? So that way this molecular weight will change if it is simple or complex. Okay, so that way if it is called the saccharides, polysaccharides and polysaccharides, they are sugars or complex sugars. So what which will have low molecular weight is carbohydrates. Saccharides, monosaccharides or disaccharides will have low molecular weights, whereas these complex sugars will have high molecular weights. And these monosaccharides are easy to dissolve it in water, but if it is more complex, it is going to be insoluble or difficult to dissolve in the water. And if you look at the taste, this when it is lighter, it will be taste will be sweeter. Okay, so if it is polysaccharides, if more complex the sugar becomes, it becomes tasteless. Okay, so these these saccharides can be further classified into monosaccharides and disaccharides. So you can see the diagrammatic representation of how many sugar molecules are there for single, double and multiple sugars. So general formula I told you, it will be in the form of CH2ON. When N is 3 to 7, they come under saccharides. More than 10, we call it as polysaccharides. And examples are already we have seen. Okay, so names, they take different names based on number of carbon present in it. Okay, so we have seen that carbon molecular weight also will change, right? You know the atomic weights for carbon 12, hydrogen 1, oxygen 16, or O2 means 32, right? So molecular weight, general formula is CH2ON. If N equal to 3, N equal to 4, accordingly you are going to have this molecular weight multiplied, right? So if it is single CH2O, so water is 18 plus 12, you have 30. So into n, right? So molecular weight is going to change if depending upon the n. So that is accordingly number of carbon will be changing. So you will have the increase in molecular weight with the increase in carbon. So they have different names, trioses, tetros, pentose. So as a chemical engineer, we have already learned alkanes, alkenes, alkynes, right? So there how the name change. Similar to that here also, we have the name change with number of carbons present in it. Okay, so and these monosaccharides will be taking part in as a chemical engineer biochemical reactions. So we are concerned about several reactions that these monosaccharide will participate in. They participate in oxidation reactions, reduction reaction, dehydration reaction, ozone formation, etc. Okay, even the formation of esters and glycosides by monosaccharides is a special significance in the biochemical reactions. So that's where we are concerned. So we'll be make use of these monosaccharides particularly to make esters, formation of esters and glycosides. Okay. And depending upon the R group, if it is CHO group, aldehyde group is there, they call it as aldoses. If it is CO group, that is ketonic group, we call it as ketoses. Okay, so that is one of the classification for this monosaccharide. Remember, these are all more depth is there. I think that was taught in separate course in cell biology. So I'm just recollecting here. If you look at these disaccharides also, as I said, among the oligosaccharides, disaccharides are the most common. If it is C is equal to 1, it is monosaccharide. When C is 2 to 10, it come under oligosaccharides. In that also majority will be having 2 sugar molecules. Okay, so that way disaccharides are the most common one among these oligosaccharides. And some of the common thing are reducing disaccharides like lactose. Milk, the sugar contained in the milk is lactose, and maltose is obtained from malt sugar, and there is a non-reducing sucrose from the cane sugar. So these are some of the examples for oligosaccharides. So these are some of the saccharides: sucrose, maltose, lactose are well known to us. So they have the structure like this depending upon the number of carbon and the R group attached to it. Okay, you can see CH2OH group is there, OH group is there, right? So such groups are attached to this. Okay. So sucrose is common table sugar that we are using in our daily life, and maltose is the product of starch hydrolysis. Lactose is main sugar that is present in the milk. Okay. And if you look at the polysaccharides, polymers we are going to discuss in detail. Also, you might have learned in cell biology course also. So they are the polysaccharides are polymers of monosaccharides and their other derivatives. They are held together by glycosidic bonds, and it can be called divided as or classified as homopolysaccharides, which is made up of single monosaccharides. So examples for them are starch, glycogen, and cellulose. So they are homopolysaccharides. Heteropolysaccharide is just a mixture of these single monosaccharides are called as heteropolysaccharides. The example is mucopolysaccharides is an example for heteropolysaccharides. And mainly we are concerned about the starch, glycogen. They are going to be used in industrial production, and cellulose also being used in the biomass energy conversion kind of thing. So that way we will be exploring the starch, glycogen, and cellulose. That's why this polysaccharides is important for biochemical engineers. Okay, and because the starch and glycogens, starch is the carbohydrate reserve for plant. Okay, for us for glycogens are the carbohydrate reserve for animals. So that way it is stored, that is like a reserve. Whatever, when you take excess food, what happens, these carbohydrates get accumulated and stored in the body. So when we starve for 10 days, 12 days, then they release energy. Okay, because that's why they are the sources. The starch, glycogen will be providing the energy to them. Okay. So another thing is these glycoproteins. Glycoproteins are biochemically important compounds which will be coming across in our course also. Okay, and there are several enzymes, hormones, structural proteins, and cellular receptors. They are all coming under the category of glycoproteins. Okay, and there is another thing. Next to carbohydrate, lipids are one of the important organic compound which is widely found in the living organisms. They also have wide variety of structures and functions, and they are easily soluble in organic solvents because there are hydrocarbons present in it. Okay, and some of the examples for lipids are fats, oils, steroids, waxes, and other related compounds, and they are more related by their physical by the more than the chemical properties. Physically, if they look alike, okay, fats, oils, and steroids. And these, there are lipids are particularly a class of compounds which is distinguished by their insolubility in water. We have seen carbohydrates soluble in water, and here we have insoluble in water, and they are soluble in non-polar solvents. So the lipids are soluble in non-polar solvents. So why we are discussing all this, why we should know all these things is because there is a technique called cell disruption technique. So if you want to study a microorganism, we will disrupt its cell. So we have to do some dissolve it in some liquid solvent accordingly, in which it is soluble, in which it is not soluble. So accordingly, each part is separated out by centrifugation. Centrifugation technique will be used to, that is, if it is dissolving in it, so we apply centrifugal force. The centrifugal instrument equipment is used to separate out each part that is present in the cell. So that's why we are going through all this, what is carbohydrate, what is lipid, and all. Okay, these lipids are important in biological systems because they form the cell membrane. That is, cell membrane is what is the role of the cell membrane? It works, I told you that it works as a security guard at the main gate, right? So they are a mechanical barrier that divides the cell from the external environment, and these membrane, plasma membranes will be deciding who will enter and who will exit from in between the cell and the environment, right? So that way these lipids also provide energy for life, and several essential vitamins are generally made up of coming under the category of lipids. Okay, so if you look if you, we can divide them as saponifiable lipids and non-saponifiable lipids. Okay, what is non-saponifiable lipid? Saponification is what? Soap ability to get form bubbles, right? So that a non-saponifiable lipid cannot be broken into smaller molecules by hydrolysis. So which will include like waxes, phospholipids, triglycerides. They all come under the category of non-saponifiable lipids. So there is another type called saponifiable lipids. They contain one or more ester groups which will undergo it, which will allow it to undergo hydrolysis in the presence of any acid or base, or even in presence of enzymes. Okay, so some of the examples which are widely used even medical purposes also. Non-saponifiable lipids examples are steroids, prostaglandins, and terpenes. So these are some of the examples. So if you look at the two major classes of lipids, there are several type of lipids important in our life. So some of the classifications are, we have seen already based on saponification, we have classification. Other than that, if you look at the major lipids, lipids are, one is fatty acid, another one is triglycerides, glycerophospholipids, and steroids. So these are some of the major classes types of lipids which is widely used. Okay, so as a biochemical engineer, we are also concerned about fatty acids, steroids, all that. Okay, so each one can be further divided into classification, and there are a lot of biochemistry involved in it. That is not in the scope of this course to cover everything under it. But whenever we are going to make use of them, we should able to read what classification it is coming under which category, what is its major universal function, means in general what is its function, then and there we should be able to recollect. Okay, so this will take care of them in this one. Okay, because if you look at all of these fatty acids, say they are important one components in all of these lipids. If you look at these fatty acids, and the lipid is generally classified as simple lipids, complex lipids, and precursor and derived lipids. This fatty acid mainly coming under this precursor and derived lipids, because they are all precursor for other chemical compounds. Okay, so there are a lot of things. As a chemical engineer, we are also concerned about these type of lipids. Okay, so if you look at the simple lipids, even waxes also we are concerned. If we are preparing, our aim is to make waxes as a product. There are bee wax is there, other oil waxes are there. Okay, so there is a solid type of wax is there, there is a liquid type of wax also there. Fats are esters of fatty acids with glycerol, so they both exist in oils, and fats will exist in the liquid state. Whereas these waxes, they are esters of fatty acids with higher molecular weight and molecular monohydric alcohols. So if you look at the complex lipids, we have phospholipids, glycolipids, and other complexes. Okay. So we are concerned about these precursor or derived lipids because fatty acid, glycerol, steroids, alcohols, fatty aldehydes, ketone bodies, hydrocarbon, lipid soluble vitamins, and hormones are the derived lipids or precursor lipids because they are uncharged. And even in among these, if you look at the cholesterol and cholesterol esters, they are called as neutral lipids because they are uncharged. Okay, coming to this fatty acids, in particularly the fatty acid, we have seen it is a type of lipid. So if you look at these fatty acids, they are unbranched carboxylic acid having long hydrocarbon chains, and most of these fatty acids are naturally available fatty acids, and even an even number of carbon atoms due to the synthesis from acetate. They are produced from acetates, so they will have even number of carbon atoms, and both saturated and unsaturated fatty acids can be produced. In unsaturated fatty acids, these double bonds will have a cis configuration, and they are separated by one CH2 group. Okay, so they will have some less intermolecular interaction compared to saturated fatty acids. So as a result, these unsaturated fatty acids will have, obviously the molecular weight is going to be less in compared to saturated fatty acids. Okay, so lesser the double bond, lesser is going to be the melting point, right? So these are based on the number of carbon. You have seen that they are present in even number. You can see there is no odd number here, either it is saturated fatty acid or unsaturated fatty acid. I am just again reminding you, if you are looking for different chemical to do your BTech project, you can look at some of these acids here. That you can choose one of them, because instead of repeatedly doing sulfuric acid production, nitric acid production, you can try these different acids. Okay, so even if you don't follow biological route, you can follow other routes to produce these things. Okay, so there is lauric acid, palmitic acid, stearic acid, but the thing is you have to justify it. If you're choosing a particular acid for production, two things you have to do. You should see the demand focus for next 5 years for this particular acid or whatever you are choosing, and you should see what is the cost and what are the different technologies available, and you should involve chemical unit operations and unit processes, right? In the project you have to design for, if there are 4 members in the project group, you have to design 4 equipment at least. So you should choose a particular product, not only product, among the production method you have to choose a method which will have a proper unit operation and unit processes. You should be able to design a reactor, you should be able to design one heat exchanger, one distillation column, one absorption column, one storage tank, right? That way, accordingly you have to choose your topic for BTech project. Okay, so if you look at these, coming back here, so if you look at this lauric acid, it's again, so depending upon the number of carbon atoms, we have different name for these acids, and their structure in general, you can see that COOH group is there. Okay, so accordingly you see lesser the carbon number of carbon, lesser is the melting point. If there are 20 carbon atoms are there, you can see the melting point has increased up to 77. Okay, there are unsaturated thing. So if you look at 16 to 18, it varies, and we have named palmitoleic acid, oleic acid, linoleic acid, linolenic acid. So if you look at their melting point, they are below 0. Even it has a melting point of -11, -5, that's right. So these are some of the acids, unsaturated fatty acids. Okay. And other type is waxes. They are also esters of long chain carboxylic acids with long chain alcohols. For example, beeswax is there. It will contain 26 carbon carboxylic acid and a 30 carbon alcohol component, while there is another type called carnauba wax which has a 32 carbon carboxylic acid component and a 30 for carbon alcohol component. So you have a carbon alcohol component and carboxylic acid group. So how much number is there? Based on that, we divide them into B. So there are several types. I am just giving you some of the industrially important or widely used things. Okay. So one of them is hard wax and widely used in used in as a car wax or in floor polishes. Okay. Even in nature also there are wax coated feathers you can see. So some of the micro means naturally they produce in the body of the animals or in the plants. So if you look at this living organism, wax is found on the surface of some of the leaves, lotus leaves, all these, right? So even people do some biomimic projects, try to understand the hydrophilic property, hydrophobic properties, all that, and try to mimic this one and try to make new materials which have properties similar to this. Okay, so this wax is present on the surface of this plant, that's why these water drops are not sticking to it and they are just get rid of it. Okay, so that way it serves as a protectant against parasites sometimes, and also it minimizes the evaporation of the water. Similarly, the feathers of birds are coated with wax to make them water repellent. Okay, so each one has their different property. Okay, and there are fats and oils. What is this fats and oils? The fats are saturated fatty acid is usually involved in the formation of ester with glycerol. So this is in industrial application, and whereas in oils, unsaturated fatty acids are used. Okay, so saturated fatty acids, they are used to make esters with glycerol. Unsaturated fatty acids are used to make oils. Okay, in case of fats, the saturated fatty acid chain can pack closely together, causing them to be solid at room temperature, and if you increase the temperature, they will get semi-solid condition or get dissolved. Okay, so whereas in case of oils, the unsaturated fatty acid chain cannot pack tightly together, so therefore they lead to usually have very low melting points. Okay, and another thing about these soaps is sodium and potassium salts of fatty acids are called as soap. Soap is nothing but a salt of fatty acid. What salt? Generally it is sodium salt or potassium salt of fatty acids are called as soaps, and they are mainly obtained by basic hydrolysis of triglycerides, which is called saponification. So that's why soap making process is called saponification. I hope in CP lab you might have done one experiment in making soap, how to make soap. Okay. So actually another property of this soap is there are three most common type of soaps are used. You can see here sodium stearate, sodium oleate, and sodium linoleate. Okay, so these that you can see that all of them have this CO2 Na group attached to it. Okay, so just sodium salt, otherwise if it is potassium you are going to have CO2K. Okay, so these are the most common type of salts. And another thing about these soaps are, in aqueous solutions these long chain carboxylic acids will arrange themselves in spherical clusters. Okay, so these long chain carboxylic acid will arrange themselves in this shape and they are called as micelles. Okay, so this is the diagram of a soap micelle. We have a polar head group and non-polar tail end. So that is the same. So actually each micelle will contain around 50 to 100 long chain carboxylates. Okay, so that's a small point about this one. Apart from that, fatty acids, soaps, and this, we have steroids. As I said, steroids are used in all the medicine purposes. Treatment purpose. If you look at steroids are lipids having a tetracycline system composed of 3 6-membered rings and 1 5-membered ring. So that is the nature of diagram. Okay, that the structure will be made up of 3 6-membered ring and 1 5-membered ring, and their non-polar character allows them to cross the cell membranes so that they can leave the cells in that they are produced and enter into the target cells. That's why when you send a steroid into our body, they are able to go through the cell membrane. Okay, because they are non-polar in nature, so they are able to get through that cell membranes and or get out of the cell membrane, and it can reach the targeted cells to treat. Okay, so particularly in animals, the most abundant member of steroid is cholesterol. Okay, so cholesterol is a type of steroid which is the precursor for all other steroids. Okay, this cholesterol only will have converted to other type of steroids. Okay, in nature only one type of steroid is existing, that is the cholesterol. So cholesterol is an important component of all the cell membranes and related to heart disease. Okay, that's why we have to control our cholesterol level after when you get 30 plus or 35 plus or 40 plus. Okay, so if you try to classify them, so we are not getting into much details of that. So because we are going, we can see that if you look at the classification of steroids, they are mainly used for medical applications. For example, one type, there are 5 type of steroids are there. Okay, one is used as an anti-inflammatory agent, glucocorticoids, and there is mineralocorticoids, which is which can, if it is reabsorption, they are responsible for the increased reabsorption of these ions by the kidneys, which will increase to blood pressure. Okay, so that way this aldosterone is an example of this type of one. So we have to reduce this type of the contents of this in our body. Okay, and there are androgens, there is one type of male sex hormones. They are responsible for our male secondary sex characteristics during puberty after attaining age. So this is responsible for this thing, and example for that is testosterone. And there are female sex hormones which is known as estrogens. They are responsible for the development of your all the secondary characteristics, and it only this is segregated by the ovaries, and they also regulate the menstrual cycle in the ladies. Okay, so this is important type of steroid. With respect to our own body, you can see that all these things with respect to human body. Okay, so then another one is progesterone is the one of the hormone which is essential for the maintenance of pregnancy. So people get conceived, but you will see that if they, for some people it is very difficult to maintain the pregnancy and deliver the child. Okay, so also this steroids will prevent the ovulation during the pregnancy also. So these are some of the important steroids which affects the daily life also. Okay, so if you look at the next one, proteins. So we know proteins are the most abundant biological macromolecules occurring in all. I am not going to get into much detail because we all have studied these proteins in detail already. Okay, so these proteins are the made up of amino acids. We know that amino acids are the building blocks of proteins, right? So these proteins may contain L-alpha amino acids. Microorganisms elaborate the peptides that contain both D and L-alpha amino acids. Okay. General properties, if you look at it, there is a diversity of thousands of proteins are found in the nature, and mainly they are made up of commonly occurring 20 amino acids. Proteins are made up of 20 commonly occurring amino acids. And if you say that it's like protein, it's a polymer. Proteins are polymers of amino acid, with each amino acid residue joined to its neighbor by a specific type of covalent bond. So they can be broken down. If you are hydrolyzing it, they can be broken down into constituent monomers or amino acids. The free amino acids derived from them. Okay. And of the over 300 naturally occurring amino acids, 20 will constitute the monomer units of the proteins. All 20 amino acids are biologically essential. So this protein, when I say protein, it consists of majorly 20 amino acids. What are they? We'll see in the table. So human generally can synthesize the 12 of these 20 common amino acids from these amphibolic intermediates of glycolysis and of citric acid cycle. So these are some of the things which are essential and non-essential amino acids are present. And the essential amino acids are essential not because they are more important to the life. We say it is essential because we are not able to produce them within our own body. So we depend upon the nutrient that the food that we consume to get these basic or essential amino acids into our body. Okay, so that's the reason when we say essential, it's not that it is abundantly available. Here essential in the sense we don't have it within ourselves, so we have to take it in our food. Okay, so these are some of the essential amino acids, and there is a list of non-essential amino acids. Okay, so if you look at the proteins, if you take any microorganism or any cell, 50% of the dry weight is made up of protein. As I told you in the beginning, all these we are understanding because when you say microorganism, to disrupt the cell and identify what it consists of, we do the centrifugation and separate them out and find out this consists of this particular microorganism consists of these parts. So it will help us to identify it, right? So that way, if you look at the protein, if you are doing separating out the any cell, 50% of the dry weight is because of the proteins. Okay. So again, if you look at some of these how they are formed, you can see the reactions that are taking place. And if you look at the structures, I hope in biotechnology, if you look at any biotechnology course, you will see this alpha helix structure. It is nothing but structure of a protein. So different structures of protein are there. Alpha helix is one of the structure of the protein. Okay, so there is amino acid residues. This is the primary structure of protein. Amino acid residue is a type of structure. Alpha helix is important helix structure because biotechnology they always show this diagram if you make any biotechnology things. Okay. There are other than these amino acid and helix, there are other type of chains. You have a tertiary structure, quaternary structure. So it is a simple structure. Primary structure is there is simple order. Secondary structure is this helix one. You have tertiary structure or polypeptide chain is there, and quaternary structure is assembled subunits will be present in it. Okay, so it is responsible for the biological function. So proteins are the agents of biological function. Virtually every cellular activity is depending upon the protein present in it. Okay, it depends upon one or more particular protein that is present in it. So there is a convenient way to classify the enormous number of proteins is there, and the various functions or proteins are there, which we will discuss later. So coming to this cell nutrition, see this microorganism we have seen what we have discussed so far is about how if you are when you do cell distribution studies and identify, they all made up of we have seen the constituents of a microorganism or a particular cell. Okay, so now if you look at this microorganism to grow, how to the cell will grow, this cells has to grow, right? This how these cells will grow, they need some nutrient agents. Okay, so depending upon the type of nutrient required, or the we will call these nutrients as macronutrient and micronutrients. So because if it is required with a higher concentration, we call it as a macronutrient. If it is required in less quantity, it is called as micronutrient. So these are the essential things which is required by the cells to grow. That is for the microorganism to multiply. Okay, so how it will, what are these macronutrients? So that is, mainly these macronutrients are, okay, we will finish it in 2-3 minutes. So if you look at this cell nutrition, so if the carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, hydrogen, yes, sulfur, magnesium, potassium, phosphorus, all these things will come under this macronutrient, and they are required by the each cell for by the concentration of 10 power minus 4 m, and if it is less than 10 power minus 4, this they are called as micronutrients. So even for your human body it varies, right? So these zinc, copper, manganese, calcium, sodium ions, all these things, vitamins, growth hormones, metabolic precursors like amino acids, so they all come under the category of micronutrient, and there can be some combination of this macro and micro. So there is a minimal medium is there. A minimum medium will be supplying only the minimal nutrient requirement of a particular organisms. So that means it will contain specific amounts of pure components which is with well-known chemical composition. We know the exact composition of this. So they are the minimal medium. There is a complex medium which will contain wide variety of nutrients, and they are actually derived from the natural product like yeast extracts. Okay, we may not even know what is the chemical composition. Okay, so they are called as complex medium. So this growth media can be a minimal media or a rich media. Okay, so this rich media will be helping. It's like that minimal media is used to for a specific microorganism, but if a colony of microorganism is there, when different type of microorganism is there, so each microorganism may require different nutrient, right? So when you give this rich or complex medium, so it will help. That rich medium will allow the different wide range of organisms to grow. It is natural, right? And there is another medium called as a reduced medium, which will involve the addition of a reducing agent like a cysteine or ascorbate is added to the medium. We are purposefully adding this to remove oxygen from it, okay, so that whatever anaerobic microorganisms are there, they can grow in the system. So there, such media is called as reduced medium. And there is another medium called as growth medium, which is a differential medium. This will allow two or more different type of organisms to grow, but it may contain some dyes or other components, depending upon which the different organisms act in various ways to produce different end products. Or we can even observe that thing, that is like we can able to observe the change in color of the system, okay, with the liquids that is present. So that is called a differential medium. So these are growth medias. Another media is growth media is a selective media. A selective medium supports the growth of desired organisms while inhibiting the growth of many or most of the unwanted ones, either by purposefully adding one or more selective agents which will poison certain type of microorganisms, or by including or deleting certain nutrients such that the desired organisms and few others are able to grow. So because when 3 or 4 different microorganisms are present, we want to put some selective medium in which we will have some selective agents which will act as poison. That is like it has to suppress something, and we should allow these things. The same thing we do in our chemical reaction, right? And there are parallel reactions are there. When you want to increase the selectivity, we have to alter the conditions in the system such that byproduct, if R, S, T are the 3 different reactions possible. If you want to increase the selectivity of R and to suppress S and T, we alter something, right? We add something which will not facilitate the S and T formation. So like that, we can even in the medium itself, we can add some of the agents which will not allow the certain type of microorganisms to grow, and what we desire on that one only will be growing. Okay, we'll continue in the next class. I'll stop here. Okay, we'll stop here. Any clarifications we can discuss, others can leave. If you have any questions and discuss something, you can stay back.